All right, let's dive into the world of steel.
Oh,
The
yeah.
titans who forge this essential material. And forget about just bridges and skyscrapers. Steel is everywhere.
It really is.
It's in our cars, appliances, even our smartphones. It's literally the backbone of our modern world.
Absolutely. We take it for granted that our
Okay.
buildings stand tall, our cars are safe,
Right.
all thanks to the tireless work of these steel giants.
Exactly. And the companies we're exploring today, they're not just producing metal, they're shaping economies and even influencing geopolitics.
Mm.
We've got China Baowu, the world's largest steel producer,
Wow.
holding court in that impressive Bale Steel Tower in Shanghai. Then there's the globe-trotting ArcelorMittal operating in a staggering 15 countries.
Yeah, talk about ambition.
Talk about ambition, right?
Yeah.
And we've got Ansteel blending centuries-old Chinese craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. Japan's Nippon Steel, renowned for its precision and quality,
Hmm.
and Shougang, known for its audacious global acquisitions. Each company has a unique story, but one question looms large. Is bigger always better in the steel industry?
That's the question, isn't it?
Because sometimes the biggest players aren't always the most innovative. So let's start with China Baowu. Their sheer scale is mind-boggling. But what's the real story beyond the numbers? Does their size translate to true global leadership, or are they just a production powerhouse?
Well, that's the crux of it, right? While their size certainly gives them clout, it also comes with its own set of challenges. Imagine coordinating operations across a vast network of facilities, managing a workforce that's essentially a small city,
All right.
and ensuring consistent quality control. It's a logistical high-wire act.
Yeah, and let's not forget the environmental impact. Producing that much steel comes with a hefty carbon footprint. How is a behemoth like Baowu navigating the growing pressure for sustainability?
Well, that's a question they can't afford to ignore. And to their credit, they're investing heavily in cleaner technologies and renewable energy sources. But whether they can truly become a sustainable giant remains to be seen. It's a tightrope walk between economic power and environmental responsibility.
Definitely. Speaking of global reach, ArcelorMittal is practically a case study in multinational operations. But with that reach comes a whole other set of complexities, right? It's not as simple as setting up shop in a new country and calling it a day.
Oh, absolutely not. Imagine navigating different labor laws, environmental regulations, and cultural nuances across 15 countries.
Oh my goodness.
And let's not forget the logistical headache of managing a global supply chain. It's like inducting an orchestra, but each musician speaks a different language and plays a different instrument.
So how does a company like ArcelorMittal even begin to create a cohesive strategy with so many moving parts?
Well, they have to strike a balance between centralizing some functions, like procurement and research and development, and allowing for regional autonomy to adapt to local market conditions. It's a delicate balancing act.
For sure. Okay, let's shift gears from global sprawl to a company with a different kind of story. Steel, they're the epitome of tradition meeting innovation, right?
You could say that. Ansteel's roots go back centuries, but they've managed to stay relevant by incorporating modern technology into their processes. They've even partnered with tech giants to develop AI-powered systems for quality control and predictive maintenance.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating. But I'm curious, does clinging to tradition ever hold them back? Some might say they're playing it safe while others are pushing boundaries.
Well, there's a risk of falling behind if they don't strike the right balance. But they seem to be acutely aware of that. They're selectively adopting technologies that enhance their existing strengths, not just chasing the latest fads. It's like a martial arts master incorporating new techniques while honoring the ancient traditions.
I like that analogy. All right, time to journey to Japan, the land of precision and craftsmanship. Nippon Steel fits right into that mold, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. They've built a reputation for producing some of the highest quality steel in the world. Think about those incredibly precise Japanese swords, or the Shinkansen bullet trains that run like clockwork. That's Nippon Steel's legacy.
Makes me wonder if they're also behind those insanely sharp Japanese kitchen knives I'm always a bit afraid to use.
It wouldn't surprise me. But beyond their meticulous attention to detail, they're also at the forefront of material science. They're developing advanced high-strength steels that are lighter and more durable, perfect for the aerospace and automotive industries.
So they're not just perfecting the old, they're also forging the new. And that brings us to a company known for its bold moves, Shagang Group. Their acquisition of the Dortmund Herd plant from ThyssenKrupp back in 2001 was a real power play, wasn't it?
It was a calculated risk that paid off handsomely. By acquiring a well-established European plant, they instantly gained access to new markets and technologies, catapulting them onto the global stage. It was a strategic masterstroke.
It's like they were playing chess while others were playing checkers. But such an aggressive expansion strategy must come with its own set of challenges.
Of course, integrating a foreign acquisition into your existing operations is never easy. There are cultural differences, management styles, and technological discrepancies to overcome. It takes a deft hand and a clear vision to pull it off successfully. And speaking of bold moves, let's talk about Hesteel Group, second largest steel producer in the world by crude steel output. That's a staggering amount of metal.
It's hard to even fathom that scale. I mean, we're talking millions upon millions of tons of steel.
Mhm.
It begs the question, how do you manage an operation that massive while still being mindful of the environmental impact?
That's the billion-dollar question, right? Because let's be honest, steelmaking isn't exactly known for being eco-friendly. The energy required to melt and process that much metal is immense, and the emissions can be significant.
So how is Hesteel addressing that? Are they just sweeping it under the rug, or are they making genuine efforts towards sustainability?
They're definitely aware of the scrutiny they're under. They've been investing in carbon capture technologies, exploring ways to utilize renewable energy in their processes, and even experimenting with hydrogen-based steelmaking.
Hydrogen steel making. That sounds incredibly futuristic. Is that even viable on a large scale, especially for a company like Hesteel?
It's still in its early stages, but it has the potential to revolutionize the industry. Imagine producing steel with water as a byproduct instead of carbon emissions. That's the holy grail of sustainable steelmaking.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. But let's shift gears to a company that's been making waves despite not being a colossal giant, POSCO from South Korea. They're proof that size isn't everything, right?
Absolutely. POSCO has consistently punched above its weight class by focusing on innovation and quality. They were one of the first companies to adopt a finite element method to simulate and optimize their steelmaking processes.
Hold on, finite element method. That sounds incredibly technical. Break that down for me.
Think of it as a virtual testing ground, where they can simulate different scenarios and refine their steelmaking recipes without wasting resources or time on trial and error. It's like having a supercomputer whispering secrets into their ears.
So they're using technology not just to produce steel, but to make the process itself more efficient and less wasteful. That's pretty clever. But let's not forget about the human side of the industry. And when it comes to social responsibility, no company stands out quite like Tata Steel. They're practically the poster child for ethical business practices.
They've definitely set a high bar. Their commitment to community development and employee well-being is woven into their DNA. It's not just a PR stunt, it's a core part of their business philosophy.
But how can we be sure it's not just greenwashing? I mean, it's easy for a company to talk the talk, but are they really walking the walk?
That's a fair question. But their track record speaks for itself. They've been actively involved in improving education, healthcare, and sanitation in the communities surrounding their operations for decades. Their commitment goes way beyond lip service.
Okay, I'm impressed. But let's not forget that they're also a multinational corporation operating in a fiercely competitive market.
Mm.
How do they reconcile their social responsibility with the bottom line?
They believe that doing good is good for business. They see their social investments as a way to create a more stable and prosperous environment for their operations, which ultimately benefits their bottom line. It's a long-term vision that goes beyond short-term profit maximization.
Now, that's a refreshing perspective. It challenges the notion that businesses have to choose between profits and principles. But let's not forget about the other players in the game. We've got Jianlong Steel holding its own as the largest privately owned steel enterprise in China, going head-to-head with the state-owned behemoths.
It's a David and Goliath scenario, and Jianlong has proven to be a remarkably agile and resilient competitor. They've carved out a niche by focusing on specialty steel products and catering to the specific needs of their customers.
It's almost like they're the craft brewers of the steel world, while the state-owned enterprises are the mass-produced brands. But can a company like Jianlong truly thrive in a market dominated by giants with deep pockets and government backing?
It's a constant uphill battle, but they've managed to survive and even flourish by being nimble, innovative, and customer-focused. They're not afraid to take risks and experiment with new technologies, and they've built a loyal customer base that appreciates their responsiveness and flexibility.
That's inspiring. It shows that even in a seemingly monolithic industry, there's room for disruptors and innovators. And speaking of established players, we can't wrap up this deep dive without talking about Shougang Group. They're not the flashiest company on our list, but they've been a steady and reliable contributor to China's industrial growth for decades.
Shougang is often overlooked. But they play a crucial role in providing the basic materials that underpin China's infrastructure and manufacturing sectors. They're like the foundation of a building. You might not see it, but without it, the whole structure would crumble.
So they're the unsung heroes of China's economic miracle, quietly churning out steel beams and plates that form the backbone of the nation's growth.
Exactly. They're a testament to the importance of consistency, reliability, and a focus on core competencies. They might not be making headlines with flashy innovations, but they're the bedrock upon which more glamorous industries are built.
Okay, so we've explored a diverse group of steel titans, from colossal state-owned enterprises to nimble private companies, from global giants to regional powerhouses. Each one has its own unique story, its own set of challenges, and its own vision for the future.
And as we look ahead, the steel industry is facing a confluence of forces that will reshape its landscape. Technological advancements, environmental pressures shifting global markets, and the rising demand for sustainability.
It feels like we're at a turning point for steel.
I think so too.
We've got these huge companies dealing with their environmental impact, smaller players kind of shaking things up with new ideas, and this big question of how to balance growth with being sustainable.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time to be watching this industry. The choices these companies make now will have a big impact for years to come. And one of the biggest things they'll have to deal with is this push for a circular economy.
Right, reducing waste and reusing as much as possible. But how does that actually work with steel? It's not like you can just recycle a car or a bridge like an old can.
Yeah, it's definitely more complicated than that, but there's so much potential. Companies are finding new ways to get steel back from demolished buildings, old cars, even industrial waste.
So it's not just about making new steel, it's about reusing what we already have. That sounds like a huge logistical challenge.
It is. It requires everyone to think differently, both the companies making the steel and the people using it. We need to design things so they can be taken apart and recycled easily. And we need the infrastructure to collect and process all that scrap metal.
Like we're rethinking the whole life cycle of steel from start to finish and back again. What about technology? What role does that play in all of this?
Technology is key to making the steel industry more sustainable and efficient. Think about AI that can optimize production, sensors that track energy use in real time, and 3D printing that lets us create custom steel parts with less waste.
So steel mills are becoming more high-tech, less like those old giant furnaces.
Exactly. More data-driven, more automated, robots working with human operators, everything optimized for efficiency and sustainability, and steel itself becoming a smarter, more versatile material.
We also have to consider the global picture. Trade wars, political tensions, resource scarcity, it all adds to the complexity. How are these steel giants navigating all of that?
It's a balancing act. Companies are spreading out their operations, trying to protect themselves from instability, and forming partnerships to make sure they have access to raw materials.
It's not just about making steel anymore. It's about global strategy and resource management.
Absolutely. The steel industry shows how interconnected our world is. Decisions made in one country can impact projects and prices all over the planet.
Wow, that's a lot to think about. What's the one thing our listeners should take away from our deep dive into the world of steel?
Steel is much more than just a material. It's fundamental to our way of life. And the industry is going through a huge transformation.
It has challenges for sure, but also incredible opportunities for innovation, sustainability, and global impact.
So next time you see a bridge or a car, or even use a simple appliance, think about all the forces at play, all the human ingenuity and the global connections that went into making that steel possible.
It's a story of ambition and innovation, a constant drive for progress, all happening in the heart of a furnace. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of steel titans.